It was just after midnight, a quiet home in the hills of Salt Lake City, a 14-year-old girl asleep in her bed, her little sister nearby. Then, a whisper, a cold blade, and a threat no child should ever hear. She vanished, taken from her own bed. No witnesses, no screams, just silence. And a nightmare beginning. 9 months in captivity, starved, raped, brainwashed, hidden in plain sight. We share stories like this not for shock, but for awareness. Abuse can happen anywhere, and often it hides in silence. If you believe in raising voices, helping survivors, and breaking that silence, like subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, you never know who it might help. The Smart family lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. They were part of a close-knit Mormon community and were known for their stability and warmth. Edward Smart worked as a real estate broker. His wife, Lois, was a stay-at-home mother. Together, they had 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy. Elizabeth was their second oldest daughter. She was 14 years old, smart, kind, and deeply connected to her family and faith. She played the harp, did well in school, and loved the outdoors. It was the start of summer in 2002. School had just ended, and the Smarts had spent the evening celebrating Elizabeth's academic award. Everything felt normal, safe. But in the early hours of June 5th, 2002, that peace was shattered. As the family slept, an intruder quietly entered the house, and what followed would become one of the most disturbing abduction cases in American history. He knew the house, he knew the family, and on a quiet summer night, he came back with a knife. In the early hours of June 5th, 2002, around 2 a.m., while the Smart family was asleep, a man quietly entered their home. He used a window in the kitchen to get inside. He carried a knife and moved silently through the hallways. He seemed to know exactly where to go. Inside the bedroom, Elizabeth was sleeping next to her younger sister, Mary Catherine. The intruder entered the room, walked over to Elizabeth, and placed a knife against her neck. He whispered, "Get up quietly. Don't make a sound, or I'll kill you and your family." Mary Catherine was awake, terrified and frozen. She couldn't move. She watched in silence as the man led her sister away into the darkness. Within seconds, they were gone. When the family discovered Elizabeth was missing, they immediately called 911. Police arrived quickly. The house was searched. So was the neighborhood. No one had seen or heard anything. There were no signs of struggle, no broken windows. It was as if she had vanished without a trace. The Smart family was devastated. A massive, community-wide search began, but no one imagined she was still so close. The man who took Elizabeth wasn't a stranger. He believed he was a prophet, and her kidnapping was part of his so-called divine mission. In the early months after Elizabeth's abduction, police struggled to find answers. There were no leads, no suspects, and no trace of where she had been taken. But behind the scenes, Elizabeth was being held captive by a man with dangerous beliefs. His name was Brian David Mitchell. He was a self-proclaimed prophet who called himself Emmanuel. Mitchell was homeless, delusional, and believed he was chosen by God to lead a new religious order. He wrote his own religious texts, full of apocalyptic visions and commands he claimed came directly from God. One of those commands, in his mind, was to take young girls as spiritual wives. Mitchell wasn't acting alone. His wife, Wanda Barzee, shared his twisted beliefs. She supported the kidnapping, the abuse, and everything that followed. What no one realized at the time was that Mitchell had already been inside the smart home. Months earlier, Elizabeth's mother had hired him for a brief job as a handyman, a simple act of charity that would later have devastating consequences. She was just miles from home, chained, veiled, and unseen. The world searched, but she walked among them, hidden in plain sight. After taking Elizabeth from her home, Brian David Mitchell led her deep into the mountains above Salt Lake City. They hiked for hours in the dark. She was tired, terrified, and unsure what would happen next. At the end of the trail was a small, hidden campsite. This is where she would spend the next 9 months, just a few miles from her own home, yet completely cut off from the world. Elizabeth was chained to a tree or a metal cable most of the day. She was forced to wear long robes and a veil to conceal her identity. Mitchell told her she was now his wife, chosen by God. He performed a mock spiritual wedding ceremony the first day she arrived. He said God had commanded him to marry 7 virgin girls, and Elizabeth was the first. From that day on, she was sexually assaulted daily. Barzee, Mitchell's wife, not only allowed it but encouraged it, calling it part of God's plan. Mitchell controlled every part of her life. She wasn't allowed to speak her real name. She was told her family would be killed if she tried to escape. Over time, the abuse and isolation broke down her sense of identity. Despite being seen in public several times, no one recognized her. Her face was always covered. She was told to walk behind Mitchell and stay silent. Even when she saw posters with her picture, she didn't speak up. She later said she didn't believe anyone would believe her, and she feared that speaking out could get her or her family killed. The key to unlocking the case was quietly living under the same roof the whole time. Months had passed since Elizabeth Smart vanished from her bedroom. Her family was devastated, the search growing colder by the day. But in the silence of her own thoughts, one person hadn't given up. Elizabeth's younger sister, Mary Catherine. She had witnessed the kidnapping. Frozen in fear, she had pretended to be asleep and afraid to move, afraid to scream. But now something resurfaced. Suddenly, it came back. The man's voice. The strange way he spoke. The name he used. Mary Catherine ran to her parents and said, "I think it was Emmanuel." Investigators acted quickly. They created a composite sketch based on her memory. Then, a breakthrough. Someone recognized the man in the sketch. His name was Brian David Mitchell, a homeless street preacher, known for shouting religious prophecies downtown. No one had connected him to the case. Until now. And the hunt to find Elizabeth reignited with fresh urgency.
This is our guy.
Finding him was not easy. Mitchell had no permanent residence and moved constantly, staying wherever he could. Police canvassed areas he was known to frequent, questioning locals and checking reports of sightings. Every lead mattered, no matter how small. To widen the search, authorities released his composite sketch to the public
He's
through
35 years
newspapers,
old
television
and has a history
broadcasts, and missing person posters.
This is our guy, Brian. We need to keep an eye out for him.
The widespread publicity meant that anyone who recognized him could come forward, and soon that very recognition would become the key to finally locating Elizabeth. If you've been with us this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next story. It was just a whisper, but it changed everything. After 9 months in chains, Elizabeth finally said 2 words that would end the nightmare. On March 12, 2003, 9 months after Elizabeth disappeared, a passerby in Sandy, Utah, spotted Brian David Mitchell walk in with 2 women in long robes. He looked disheveled. The women were veiled. The passerby didn't hesitate. He called 911. Within minutes, officers arrived. They approached calmly, cautiously, unsure of what they were about to uncover. They asked the girl her name. At first, she was silent. She'd been brainwashed for months, told that no one would believe her, that speaking up could hurt her family. But then, a flicker of courage. She looked up and softly whispered, "I'm Elizabeth." After 9 long months of fear, captivity, and manipulation, Elizabeth Smart was finally going home. The nightmare had ended, but the battle was far from over. As Elizabeth walked back into the world she once knew, the cameras followed. So did the questions, and the fight for justice had only just begun. The moment she reunited with her family was overwhelming, for them and for the entire country. Her parents later spoke about those months, the uncertainty, the fear, the nights that felt endless. Every night we prayed she would walk through the door, even when hope felt impossible. The media swarmed Salt Lake City. Her face, once seen only on missing posters, was now everywhere. But behind the relief was a storm of unanswered questions. How did this happen? Why? And what comes next? The legal process was slow, frustrating, and agonizing for the Smart family. Even though Mitchell and Barzee were arrested the very same day Elizabeth was rescued, March 12, 2003, the trial didn't begin for years. Why? Because Brian David Mitchell, who called himself Emmanuel, kept claiming he was insane. Court after court ordered psychological evaluations. For years, he was ruled incompetent to stand trial. Finally, in 2010, a federal judge declared him mentally competent. What followed was justice long overdue. In 2011, Mitchell was found guilty of kidnapping and sexual assault. He received life in federal prison, no possibility of parole. Wanda Barzee, his wife and accomplice, was also sentenced, but her story didn't end there. In 2018, Barzee was released early after serving just 15 years. The public was outraged. Elizabeth herself called the decision incomprehensible. Once again, she was forced to relive her trauma, publicly, painfully, all over again. But Elizabeth Smart refused to let her past define her. She rose above it, choosing not just survival, but purpose. She became a powerful advocate for missing and exploited children, a voice for victims of abuse, a symbol of strength the world hadn't expected, but desperately needed. In time, she founded the Elizabeth Smart Foundation, dedicated to prevention, recovery, empowerment, and education. Through her work, Elizabeth has helped thousands find hope in a world that once seemed hopeless. She often says, "You may feel broken, but you are not beyond repair. There is always hope. Never let your past define your future." Her story didn't end when she came home. It began again, on her terms. From a stolen childhood, emerged a fearless woman determined to change the world. Even in darkness, some find light. Even in chains, some break free. If this story moved you, share your voice, support survivors, and be part of the change. Like, subscribe, and return for more true stories that matter.